So obviously someone with a Dunlop bag is going to have something to say about Dunlops. And here we go.
Hello, welcome to the next video in my search for my ultimate racket. Firstly, starting up here, we have the FX500 Tour, which is one of Dunlop's newest rackets. It was released in 2023. And here I'm hitting with Coach Blake, as you can see. Now, my experiences with the FX500 Tour was that it was a racket that was good on the forehand, provided an ease of access to power. And although there wasn't so much spin, you had to generate this yourself, there was some. It was a racket that you didn't have to hit ridiculously all out or all out. It was nice to hit a forehand with this racket, without question a power frame, but at the same time you have a nice feeling about hitting the forehand with this racket. Now, as for the backhand, it was okay for the backhand strokes sometimes, but I felt the biggest problem on this was that I was hitting very somewhat flat and lacked a bit of top spin on my backhand, but compared to something such as an Extreme Tour or the Babylon Pure Strike. Blake is hitting with his Wilson blade, version 8. He's hitting quite well. One thing I took though from hitting from all these sessions was that the forehands were just enjoyable, productive, powerful with this racket. I don't know if it's as powerful as the Pureras, but they were good.
Take on that so you can just delay where you lift up. You know? Don't lift up so early.
Keep it with the shot.
Yeah.
This racket is certainly usable for the backhand, one-hander, probably a bit more of a two-hander racket, but what is good on this racket for the backhand is it does give you power, but what the big problems I felt was it lacked in the dwell time you have on the ball, and also you have a lack of just natural spin, but it made up for this with maneuverability.
Oh! Oh, 9.
I find my backhand, yeah, you're right, it does get too close.
Yeah.
No, forehand gets always a lot more away. It's the opposite.
So I wouldn't rate this racket as a top racket for the one-hand backhand. Certainly playable with the one-hand backhand. So on to another session, another court, another time, another day, and we have Stuart here. So that's another feature that will be in this racket review, is that I will be including what the hitters generally liked, what they preferred, what they didn't like. Stuart hit with all the 3 rackets, and wasn't a big fan on the blue or the red. Didn't mind the yellow as well, but his opinion kind of went up and down, but leave it to the end to see what he ultimately thought. Session and session with Coach Blake, I had the best experience hitting forehand. So.
Oh, 9. Feels very
a bit more control, but a bit more free flowing. Easy power.
So the FX is the blue, the CX is the red, and SX is the yellow. Dunlop has been around a long time, but Dunlop Sport does not exist as people think it does. Sadly, not an English firm, and it's not made anywhere in Europe or England. It's made in China. And it's a great tragedy that this has happened to not just Dunlop, but all manner of European brands. And it's planned, but also we should be planning to bring back homegrown technology. Now the FX line is all about force projection. So when you're going into this line, be aware of what you want out of the racket. Consider, do you want a racket which is going to provide more pure force? Then you want to look for a thicker beam. If you want to have force with some control and feel, look for a thinner beam. And that's what this line does offer, a bit of variance in that. So you've got the FX500, 100, and FX500 Tour. This racket I have is a racket that's got a thinner beam than the FX500, which is 100 square inch. So you should come to know that if you're looking for more of a pure power frame, go with the FX500, which is 100 square inch, but it's a thicker beam. And then of course be aware of what suits you. When you try an FX line, say for myself, I like power frames a bit, but have some control and feel good. You might be a player that doesn't think that. Again, this is about what I like, but take into account what the parameters, the characteristics of the material that you're working. And the material in this case with the Dunlops being the FX and the CX are going to be that which is going to have more flexible beam. And you have here at 2 and 10 o'clock in this racket, there is super elastic, super light material. Now this offers rebound properties that are significantly higher than other materials. Now half the time you're going to see me playing with the black strings, which are the RPM Blast, and then the green strings, which are the Slinko Hyper G Round. I didn't really like hitting with the RPM Blast in much of these sessions. I didn't mind it, but I kind of realised again why I left it. And I get a really pingy kind of feel with it. It was a bit sore on my hands even at times, especially in the fingers a bit. And whilst in the Slinko I didn't have that. Not saying Slinko is a great string either, it's an average string. I don't use either of these, but it's a good average neutral string for this. Now the slice I felt on this racket was what let it down a lot, and later on you'll see it nearly lost a position or two in this. So, but the forehand just makes up so well. Here we're doing cross-court forehands. I really enjoy hitting forehands with this racket. I like doing cross-court drills, forehands and backhands, and then playing points sometimes from here. Should quickly mention is the maneuverability, the ability to change forehands, backhands on this racket was very good. It was not the greatest maneuverability of all time, but it's still very high. And the way it hits through the ball in the forehand is good. Now onto backhands, which is not going to be as good. Again, it's a very flat kind of shot you get from this. You've got to really work. See there, I've got to work on the backhand, just ripping up, and then it gets okay, but you don't get that nice rip spin as you do on Extreme Tour, the Pure Strike. I mean, you don't have to work like a Prestige or Classic mold. You don't have to work as hard as those. As the grommet structure and redesign and larger string bed within the FX500 line provides more power.
With the one hand, if you're using one hand to get up under this, two hand are probably a bit more flatter.
Something to note from earlier on Dunlop technologies and all these frames is that all these frames have what's called sonic core with infinite G. This is an ultra elastic material that offers high rebound properties. So think of it like a measured trampoline. You don't feel sore when you've jumped on it, up from it, and you get projected higher than what you could usually jump. That's how you want to think of the force on the ball. On the serve, there was no real problems with the serve. It's a different kind of feeling though to the other two rackets, and it's different to a lot of other rackets I play with, but still, it's a reasonable serving racket. Something I also noticed on serving was that it was very quick to get a swing on this racket, and so this continues onto the forehand. And this has got something to do with the power boost frame geometry. This is a technology which Dunlop uses, and the power boost frame geometry basically combines an aerodynamic profile with a wider throat stability. So that's why it felt more stable. You can see it just more stable and powerful. It becomes obvious when you look at the V energy shaft. That is right there, the shaft of that racket. It's quicker through the air.
Let's go.
And again, another session, another day, another time, and we have a new appearance on the channel. This is Zane, and Zane is someone I've been hitting with for a fair while, and he doesn't. This is his second time I think ever testing any kind of racket. First real dedicated time. Zane uses the version 7 Wilson blade.
Yeah.
It's more feathery.
The wind part.
Now, as much as I like people watching these videos, I do like learning from all these video platforms, and I have learned a lot. I think it's important people have to get out into nature more. I hear nice calls from nature, or go on hikes or walks to realize where this erroneous path where we're being pushed down, and people need to stop being a tool of their tools or the tools in life. You know, screens and internet and being online all the time is not healthy. It's not what life is about. So seek to have more of an attachment to nature and look into biodynamics.
Bounce so high.
Really?
Yeah, it's kicked up.
What I do is I usually just hit with them a few days, so I really let them sink in.
This is something critical for everyone to realise, that with racket testing you have to be completely objective, and also at the same time you have to be aware of what somehow you like as well. So when you're testing a racket, spend a lot of time with that racket. Think to yourself, what do you like about the racket? How does it play for you? How does it feel for you? And if you like it straight away, it's probably the racket for you.
Up, down, yeah, there. Whoa.
Zane was hitting a lot better with CX200.
I love my forehand. The shots are starting to come in well with that racket.
Feel more confident to get top spin on it and like come through the net.
you'll be able to hit it hard. Because when you're here, you can get over it easy. Yeah. When you're there, you really have to let it drop.
Now, when this was recorded, it was quite a humid day, and we've had very odd weather recently. March and April being kind of still humid, hot, March being still hot, but then May dropping very suddenly. And all this will have an effect on playability. Take into account the weather.
Oh, yes.
The SX300 Tour 2022. So what is this racket about, and what is the SX line about? Racket is the heaviest and most stable of the SX line. And just as when we examine the FX player lines, there is also a 98 and 100 in the SX, which again have different characteristics despite having the same beam. Tour is more headlight, it's heavier, and it has a higher swing weight. From the beginning, I found the Tour was reasonable. It was okay in the backhands and forehands, but it was very, very unstable at times with the backhand. I didn't exactly know what shot I was going to get out of it. Playable, but it lacks a somewhat kind of feel. The Tour is more stable than the 100, and interestingly has a lower stiffness than the 100 version. So if you want a Dunlop SX that is more balanced in the head, is stiffer and lighter, go the 100. If you want similar stiffness with greater mass and thus more stability, go the Tour.
Oh, that's fully spent.
Now, what's the technology behind the SX line? This is the spin boost and grommets. Now, this combines both a new technology with an upgrade, which I find quite interesting. Now, we have a set of grommets that are set in the top section of the hoop, facing different angles. In fact, you'll notice there's 45 degree, there's perpendicular, parallel, there's 30 degree, 15 degree, and these top 12 main strings. The strings at different angles will, upon impact with the ball, provide more movement that grips or bites the ball. Since the last variant, they've increased the number of strings and they made the string bed larger, so you're going to be getting more spin on the ball everywhere. This should mean a larger sweet spot, at least in terms of a spin sweet spot, but this could also affect the way that you hit shots, and this is going to induce more of a fake or artificial mechanical rotation rather than you necessarily putting in the mechanical rotation yourself. So some shots, or if not most shots, will come off as spin or unstable, as opposed to only when you want to do spin, you do this type of movement. So this has mostly a pro for some people, but could also be a downside, which I did actually experience. If you can get past that, it's going to be a good 98 spin racket for you. Steve joins us again, and here he's hitting with the same FX500 Tour. Another point on the SX300 Tour is that on serves, it felt somewhat stiff. Not just boardy, but stiff and boardy. And I did not like it at all on the serves. You can just see from a simple shot like that, you can just get a lot of easy spin on this racket.
shot.
Mate. Whoa! It's got surprisingly good feel to this racket. I really like it, though. It's not flexy, but it's not, you can still feel the ball on the string. Very good racket.
Yeah, I like it too.
Yeah, I think this is the pick of the lot.
The new CX200 2024-98. The CX line is something else in Dunlop. It's one of the founding rackets of the whole entire Dunlop modern range. It has its own unique classical mold. It's a real player's frame sorted out by the pros. CX line is the most updated of all the lines and is the most diverse in the Dunlop range. The 95 Tour, which won't feature in this video, comes in both the 18/20 and 16/19. In fact, I can't get a 95 Tour where I am at. The 95 Tour is Dunlop's version of Wilson's 6.195s or Head Prestiges 95. The 95 Tour is Dunlop's version of Wilson's 6.195s or Head Prestiges 95. Now the 98, which will feature, comes also in the 18/20 and the 16/19. And I can't get the 18/20 again, so the 16/19 was the only thing available to me. Finally, the CX400 Tour, which also comes in the CX400, not available where I'm at, but the CX400 Tour is also 16/19. It has the largest head size. Just as in the FX line, the beams are different. Whilst the CX line is diverse, it is simple and obvious for players to know what to select. The 95 Tours have the thinnest beams, 7 points headlight, and are the heaviest. They are also the most stable and precise because of their weight and the way it's distributed, and it's closest to a prestige classic mold. Now the 98 that I am demoing here has a beam 1mm thicker than the 95s, but it's still thin at 21.5mm consistently, especially compared to the CX400 Tour at 23mm and then the CX400 at 24mm. So logically it follows that if you want the most precise, control-oriented, heaviest and thus most stable racket, go with the 95 Tour. You will be swinging all out and you'll need to have good technique and great footwork. The 98 is not easy, but it offers at least some pop, even though it's a bit limited. And if you're a 100 square inch player looking for control, don't bother with the 98, just go with the 400 Tour.
Yeah. That's the one where you really got to step in, go bang, and body weight forward, man. Really like hit out of that ball. That's nice. No, it's good play.
I just thought it was easy to get.
No, that's what you got to do. If you don't do that, you won't do it matches. Really stepping that ball, rock it up. Focus, just spinning up the back of that ball. Yeah. And again. Yeah. Again. Yeah. Good, that's good.
Sorry.
Yeah, so if you've got more time, by all means, spin up and rip it. But now we're just going to have to wrap it up and just practice going up the back of that ball, okay?
Yeah. Oh.
Good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. And yeah, come on.
Oh.
Good, get ready.
Oh. Oh.
Good.
Oh.
Now, what technology is in the CX line? Firstly, we have the Power Grid String Tech. This is not a new technology, it's been around since 2019. And what it does is it places a wide across string spacing to enhance the sweet spot by up to 30%. This evenly distributes the power across the string bed. And the second one, which is actually new and is very interesting, is what's called the Vibra Shield. This is a highly elastic material placed to the midsection of both the hoop and the shaft. Interesting to note that the Vibra Shield, which if you watch tennis guy's video, he did a very good video. I can recommend watching it on there. Is somewhat similar, if not very similar, to the Onyx Percept developed. Interesting to note that Dunlop, which is, as I've mentioned, owned by Sumitomo Rubber Industries, is also based in Japan. There's no doubt crossover. I'm conjecturing crossover in engineering. Now, the Vibra Shield gives you a much better feeling, and it actually absorbs a lot of the pain that you might get in hits. I felt no pain at all hitting with the Dunlop's CX line. The next new thing is the control frame geometry. Now, this is a box frame mold for more stability, and you have a concave area inside the hoop. So again, this is something which is unique somewhat to Dunlop, but you see it in some other pro stocks, but it's a great development.
Very good. You want it to be all about that.
Yeah.
That's a great shot.
So unique to the CX line is the placement of the aforementioned sonic core with an Infinergy, which in this racket and this line is applied at 3 and 9 o'clock throughout the head. An important update is the added flexibility on the inner part of the frame, which enables enhanced dwell time and pocketing. And I felt this when I was hitting shots that you could really get under and up the ball, but at the same time you couldn't get that nice spin pop that I like on some certain other rackets. Nonetheless, this added flexibility and reduces the stiffness, which in the CX200 line, it has a stiffness RA of 64, which is the lowest of all these three rackets. I feel this in all the shots, and this new model has a buttery-like feel, and never did I feel any kind of soreness, even with the babbler strings in the CX line. There was some stiffness present in the SX line, and a minor degree of small soreness, which was only with the babbler strings in the FX.
I don't know. I think I know just about as much, or you know.
That's right.
You or me know as much now as he does.
Yeah, that feels so nice just from that one hit
Oh, the blue.
compared to those other two.
The blue.
Yeah, this feels much nicer just from one hit.
So one cannot overhit with this racket. You're certainly going to experience underhitting, but I never at all experienced a sense that I would overhit on this racket or it would go ridiculously long. And that's something which is a great advantage of this racket.
Oh, wow.
Oh, it's nice. Very nice, in fact. At 48 this. Oh, I control it, but it's easy power.
Yeah, I like it. Oh.
No. Alchemy.
$360 or some crazy price.
Shows you how much money they're making, because they're probably still making a profit at 150.
Yep. If tennis only can sell the old demo, the old model for 150.
So Dunlop CX200 is actually been around for a while. This is the previous version. I don't have the latest version simply because, well, I've been demoing that, and I don't have the version before, but I used to play with the CX200 Plus. Which you can actually see in some of my older videos, a bit, about 2 years ago or so. And this is the version before. I actually didn't like this racket so much. I found it very stiff, very muted. Not really a racket I enjoyed, but I did like the new one a lot more. And I would say if you're going to get this version, you want to be someone, if you're someone who can actually just enjoys more control, stiffer rackets, muted feel, then you're going to like this racket a bit more. But if you're someone who didn't like this racket, don't give up on Dunlop or the CX200 line, because the current one has a similar, I mean, as you can see, this here has a longer beam. So you have here a beam that goes across here. This is a longer, and also a thicker beam, a thinner beam. It's about it's a lot bit more, headlight. As you can see, you can test the headlightness, but not so radically headlight. And so this has sonic energy, or the sonic core, with the infinite energy. Now, if you're someone though who didn't like this at all, do not give up on the CX200 line. Go with the newer line, the newer one that I was suggesting. It's a much more plusher feel, and you'll quite enjoy it.
On the serves, I had nil complaints, and Zane liked it a lot on the serves. In fact, this was one of his favourite rackets. Where this racket fell away for me, though, was the playability and some manoeuvrability. It was average on slices, despite being the best, actually, of all the three rackets, and lacked any real pop, but I believe with some modification, this racket could work. So it seems like a mix of Wilson and Head Prestige, but also with the Vibra Shield, some bit of Yonex Percept line, which, as I mentioned before, isn't surprising. So possibly there's some being shared. Now, the CX298 played much better than the Percept. So, if anything, if this is the truth, it's a great testimony to this company. But both had something in common, at least on the ground strokes, which I noticed.
A lot more of your, I can't believe how much improvement in your volley. Completely different player. You should utilise that, man, in your matches.
So you see days leading up to a tournament to get the right practice in.
Yeah, but the weather was shit.
Say again?
The weather was bad that week before.
Oh, that's great. Huge crap.
Okay.
good volley.
They're quick enough.
That was good. Piers, come on, Piers.
I would like to mention that in general, this was probably the racket which the players frame, and it was up there with the FX, but it was both similar but different.
Ah.
Just got no feeling at all. It feels bawdy, underpowered, no feedback. Just terrible.
Blue.
Okay, now beast versus beast. Dunlop versus Dunlop. Oh, that's not a good start from that Dunlop. Price like this. Because I reckon a lot of college people use this.
Really?
Yeah. Yep. That's better than the yellow, but it doesn't have the same feel as this.
That's better.
This feels, it's not flexy, but it's not, you can still feel the ball on the strings.
I know when it's going to go out with that.
Yeah, it's very nice feedback.
So now with the testing coming to a close, certainly has been an involved experience. Dunlop is a very technological based operation, and this was the most research I've ever conducted into any of these videos I produced. And I've learned a lot about rackets in general, material science, and more about racket design. And it was interesting to see a large chemicals company collaborating with Dunlop.
Yeah, the ball's on you pretty quick.
This is the part of tennis I do like looking into, specifically the materials and engineering technological advances applied.
Nice play. The other rackets, the amount of people that just go through racket after racket, they make more sales out of people buying and making an error in buying that racket and then having to change it than they do in actual purchases just for that racket.
Yep.
Overall, this has been quite a fulfilling experience. Here is where and how the group winner will be decided.